Holly Cotton here, and I am so honored that our guest today is coming on and sharing her story. So I have Miss Pamela Elder, and Pamela is actually going to tell us the story of her daughter, Raven Jeffrey Jeffress. Sorry. I write it out and then I still misspell it with the way that I write it out. So she's going to tell us a story about Raven, and then also she's going to talk about her foundation, the Ray T. Bacon of Light AMPS Foundation, which we're just going to call the Ray T Foundation for short today. So welcome, Pamela.
Hello, hello.
So, first, before we go into all of the great things that you are doing right now, I know that the story that you have, unfortunately, is a very sad one. There's really no other word to describe
Mhm.
it. As a mother, I mean, I think that it's our biggest fear that our kids are not safe. And honestly, I think two of your videos that you did were on my Explore page. And so the first one, I think I might have looked at it or something, and I was like, oh God, this is so sad. Like, oh my gosh. And then the second time I saw you on my Explore page, I was like, you know what? I think there's a reason we need to be sharing this story. So I reached out to Pamela and I was like, hey, would you love to share your story with us? So, kind of go into tell us about Raven, and then also, would you mind sharing with us about her accident?
Mhm. Absolutely. Raven was nothing short of amazing. She's my firstborn. Um, like wholeheartedly a mini me in like every aspect of that. She excelled in throughout every parts of school. She could have gone to any college she wanted to go to, but of course she chose Georgia State University because I went to Georgia State University. She was actually majoring in psychology because I am a therapist, and so she wanted to go into the mental health field with me. Um, she was a cheerleader there. She was in women's lead. She was on the dean's list. I found out several times actually. She told me about it once, but apparently she was on dean's list quite a few times. Amazing sister, daughter, friend. She actually, at 21, started her own nonprofit foundation, and it is called AMPS Wellness, and that stands for the alignment of the mental, physical, and spiritual. Where she and two of her, she was actually a co-founder of it. She and two of her other friends created this foundation to do work in the community. I mean, they were feeding homeless, doing workout sessions with college students, toy drives, all that kind of stuff. So that's just kind of in a short summary of some things about Raven. On March 24th, um, typical Friday, I'm hanging out with my friends, my husband, and our like couples friend group, and we decided to go see Brian McKnight. We had bought these tickets like a while ago, so we're super excited. And so the entire day, I'm like texting Raven. She's texting me like, "Are you excited, mommy?" I'm like, "Yes, girl." We get there. I'm texting her like, "Oh my God, we're like on the front row." I'm sending her snaps and pictures and Instagram DMs, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, mommy, you're living your best life. I love you. You guys look so pretty. Y'all look so cute." And everything was just amazing. Like that Friday night was just great. She was out with her friends. It was a birthday. I'm like selling her money, like have fun, just our typical, day. Like that's just kind of how we are and how we operated. Just super excited and happy for each other, just living. Um, March 25th, just Saturday morning. I woke up just like I typically do. Even when I hang out, I still wake up early. I guess that's the mom in me that just gets up early no matter what. And I remember having a missed call, and it said like a health system. So I was just thinking it was like like a scam call. So I'm like, okay, this is weird that they're calling, on a Saturday morning, but didn't think much. I remember going on Instagram, just kind of scrolling, kind of like how you said, you're in the Explore pages. I remember seeing this little girl, and she had passed away. I think the hairstylist had posted like her doing her hair the last time, and I would just remember thinking like, oh my God, that's just so sad. It just hit me, like, oh, I just could not imagine. I remember thinking that. And then as soon as I scrolled, my phone rang. And it was actually a call from Grady Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. And they called to let me know that Raven had been in a pretty serious accident. And I just remember my heart just dropping. Because when I saw that it was Grady, I could just only think of her. She's downtown Atlanta. That's where she was living, going to Georgia State. And so they told me to just come. And so I came, and they basically told me that she was not going to survive, or she had not survived the accident. And they told me that it was a hit and run where she was hit head on. She was driving in a car. Another car came on the highway the wrong way. She was hit head on, and the passenger and the driver fled the scene and left her there.
Okay, first, I just wanted to say that the strength that you have to just tell that story without bursting into tears,
That's
like
because
I want to
I got the
cry.
tears out before. They still may pop
I know, but
up.
I know, but
Yeah.
still, and I know I tell people all the time as a reference, of like, I remember when my mom passed away, and so I remember probably 2, 3 years later, I would be in the car driving and just fall out crying, like. I mean, like I would be at the red light. I don't even know what it was. Some
Mhm.
stupid song came
Yeah.
on, or I saw a cat,
Yes.
and I remember her talking about a
Yeah.
cat. Like, and I tell people, like, you never, the whole never goes away. So the fact that this just happened in March, and your strength right now is just amazing. And so I just, I want to share your story because uh, I think that there's so many parents that do go through this and think that they're the only one. And I know, I have to think they're grown kids, young adults. And I tell my son all the time, if I get a call in the middle of the night, I immediately, like, I'm like, "What is it?" And he's like, "What? I was just calling." I'm like, "Don't call me." Like, they don't know the pressure of that. So, whenever you went to the hospital and you were there, can you just give us how you felt? Because again, I think that that feeling resonates with so many people, and I definitely want to make sure we keep it as a empathetic. I don't want to, like, exploit it at all. I think that as far as, other parents, because I know some people also, my one of my really good friends, same situation. She lost her daughter in college, and her daughter D would be like 30 something right now. And I'm always just amazed at how strong she still is. So can you go back to when you were in the hospital and they're there and you realize that there's nothing that you can do? Can you kind of replay that for us?
Yeah. So my husband and I, we knew be- because I'm a therapist and I also work in crisis. So I kind of know the ins and outs of some things. And so once they took us into the family room first, right? We didn't go straight to her. I knew that it was likely not to be good news, right? Um, they told me that basically there was not much they could have done to save her. She basically passed away from brain dead. And so, I knew that we were at Grady, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking that we are at the best trauma center. So if anybody's going to be able to save her, it's going to be the Grady. And so when they told me it wasn't anything they could do, I knew where we were with it, unfortunately. Um, it was, it's an indescribable feeling. Um, you send your children off to college, and you pray for them, and you love on them, and you send them money, and you cry with them, you laugh with them, and you go through everything with them. And then to find out one day, in the blink of an eye, they're gone, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So I know you mentioned that Raven was taken away with a hit and run driver. And So I think that, a lot of times when people lose a child, it's like gun violence and they find the killer, or or it's a self-inflicted accident. Maybe the car veered off the road and they hit a tree or something like that. So does it make it harder to know that it was a hit and run accident, and that they were they left the scene, they didn't check on her? Does that make it harder to deal with it, because it's kind of like that, not having that closure?
Um, so the driver was actually arrested, and so in the state of Georgia, the passengers in car accidents do not have to stay at the scene. So the passenger did not get any type of consequence, basically. But the driver was arrested, and we're actually still in court dealing with that right now. But I think one of the hardest parts about all of that was that Raven was so loved, and she has so much family. Like, we were from Atlanta, and the thought of her being left somewhere to die alone takes a toll on me regularly. You know, the fact that I wasn't able to be there with her, and because I could have been, like if someone just called, or, had they call 911 instead of just leaving her there. Maybe the 1 second or the 2 minutes or the 30 minutes or whatever have you could have saved her life. But to know that someone would be involved in an accident such as that, because it took me some time to find out different parts of it, but to find out in the magnitude of what her car was in and what happened during it, like the fact that it flipped around and things like that, so you knew that it wasn't it was a bad accident. And to leave her there, someone like her that is so much full of love, ready to do so many things in this world, and to know that she had to be alone, as a mom, like, that's tough. Like, that's really, really tough, because you think you're here to protect them, like you're here to make sure they're okay, and there was nothing that I could have done differently. And so you kind of feel helpless in those type of moments.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I was going to say this, it made me think about this as well. So I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for several years. I don't like people doing the math on my age, so I don't drop how many years because they be trying to
Hmm.
math. Uh, but I know I've worked in geriatrics for a really long time, and I used to always be the person that was consoling the family member when their loved one was passing away. And then I remember, like, when my mom passed away, I was like, wow, so this is what it feels like to be on this side. And I really feel like I always was very sensitive to other people's, their grief process. I've always had the huge heart. So I know that I never did anybody wrong. I was always there doing that. So, but to be on the other side, it's almost just indescribable, because you're like, wow, so this is, it humbles you. So as a mental health expert and advocate, what were some of the things that you had to dig deep in, back in the bag of therapy, to help you cope with your loss?
Well, girl, I feel like I had to find a whole nother bag. Like, I felt like that bag it wasn't doing it. I think me being a therapist, I knew things, like, I know the grief cycle, right? So I knew, what that looks like. I have worked with people and helped people through their grief. I think one of the challenging parts for me is that I never knew grief like this. I have lost people, close people, friends, family members, but when you lose a child, you know what I mean? When you lose someone that um, there was no part of your brain that could have tried to comprehend this, right? So when we lose our parents, sometimes there's like a natural order, right? Some point, like, you never want that to happen anytime soon, but there's a small
Right.
part of your brain that know there's a possibility that my parents will, at some point they will pass away. We all will at some point, right? But never your children, right? She was not sick. She was not, like, on drugs. Like, she and not that makes it any easier, right? It doesn't make it any easier if she was any of those things. The fact that she is no longer alive um, makes you have to find new ways to live. That's how I look at it. One of the things that I feel like I have learned in this process is that grief has a language, right? Just like how you have love languages, I am learning that I am choosing to learn what my grief language is. And so that I can communicate that to other people. Because one of the hardest things about going through this is that nobody knows what to say. Nobody knows what to do. And quite honestly, nothing that nobody says to do is going to make anything feel any better. And I think everybody's kind of stuck in that space. And so I try to alleviate that. And I don't do that to help anybody else. I do that for myself so that I can identify what my needs are, so I pay attention to what my languages are. Some days it may be I need physical touch, and some days I don't want to be touched at all. And being able to kind of articulate those things. I believe that because I have a mental health background, it did allow me to kind of use some of those tools to look at these things differently. And also in some ways help others, to where I'm able to say like, hey, let's sit back and look at what their grief language is looking like so that we can know how to proceed with them. Some people laugh. I laugh a lot. I will cry and laugh in the same moment. And so people know, okay, we can laugh around her. Some people don't want to laugh at all. They want to hit. For example, my daughter, Ravens, I have three other children, but Robin was extremely close to Ravens. They're very close in age. And so she did not do well with laughter. Like, she don't want to hear nobody laughing. She don't want to see nobody smiling. Like, my sister has been killed, and I don't want to see anybody smiling or laughing. Since then, she has gotten a bit better about that. But that's an example of that, like just kind of understanding grief language. And so that is something that I've kind of incorporated in that bag, in that toolkit of like what does that look like and how does that change and how do I help my husband understand that so that he won't feel so helpless in this process. And I think that's been really helpful for all of us.
Grief language. I like that. I like that. Yeah, and I can totally relate to that because I remember after I was diagnosed with cancer, I was so sick of people coming up to me, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And so I started saying, "Well, why? Did you give it to me? Or is, like how are you, why are you sorry? Why are you apologizing?" So I know that it's hard for people who are experiencing a loss to for us to know what to say. So, can you tell us what some of the things are that you hate that someone has said to you so we know not to say those things to people who lost a child?
Well, you know what I've learned in my grief language, a lot of things don't bother me as much. And that could be it could be
Okay. Yeah, okay, Pamela. Okay, well, what your husband don't like? Because he seems like the one we need to be to.
No, but see, I really think it's because I tend to ask a lot of questions, and so it doesn't bother me that people ask a lot of questions, right? I'm a therapist, right? So I'm used to like asking questions and finding solutions, and so it doesn't bother me as much. But now that I've had some time to kind of process some things, what I do know is questions like "How are you doing?" is hard to answer because your brain is kind of foggy, right? It's really foggy, and you're fighting through like a gazillion thoughts and words and feelings. And so, just to answer something as simple as "How are you doing?" can be challenging, right? Um, Sometimes do you need anything? Because you don't know what you need. But I know why people ask the question, but you don't really know what you need. Um, sometimes I feel like that it could be just the small questions are a little bit more overwhelming. When people ask me like what happened, I'm just shooting that out. This happened. That it's like that's just how my brain kind of operates. But when it's like the other questions, like, what do you need or how are you doing? Or, I'm like, let me think about that for a minute. Because I'm filtering through like a gazillion things in my mind in this moment, trying to figure out this one word to tell you. And that's why people, I think, sometimes just go with the "I'm okay, I'm fine," because it's so hard to fight through all of that. It's just kind of easier to just go with the "I'm okay." But I chose not to do that. Like, I chose to, like, I will pause and sit and think, like, how am I feeling in this immediate moment? And I might say I'm sad as hell, or I may say I'm frustrated, or I'm irritated, or I'm emotional. Like, I choose to take a moment to allow myself to fight through those things so I can know. It's not even about the person anymore, right? It's like, how do I feel in this immediate moment? Because that's going to change in the next millisecond. So, you know,
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Pamela. Like I said, I would love to use your story not only to inspire but to educate people as well. So, whenever you decided to come up with the foundation, the Ray T Beacon of Light Amps Foundation, I know that's a lot, you guys, but we just the
Yes,
Ray T
the Race
Foundation for
Foundation.
short.
So funny thing is, when I came up with the name, it was like I mean, I like went running with, okay, well, I got to do something. Like that's just how my brain works. It's like I got to do something, and so I think me and my friends were sitting around and we came up with this long name. So then after I started like filling out the paperwork, doing this, I was like, why in the hell did I create this name this long? Like I can't fit it on anything. Like it can't go on the bank statements, and so I have thus shortened it to the Ray T Foundation. But the entire name is all of that. But the Ray T Foundation, yes.
So, tell us about how you established that, why you established that, and what your
Yes.
mission is.
So um we immediately thought about how can I do something with this pain, because I am not going to survive this pain if I don't do something with it. Like that, it was like immediate, like I have got to do something, because the feelings that I was feeling and the thoughts that I was having, I've never experienced those feelings and those thoughts. And so my brain went into like a survival mode, like how are we going to survive this grief, right? And so I immediately was, started thinking about, with the help of my friends who are now on my board, with the help of some of them, just kind of thinking about the fact that I attended Georgia State University. I grew so much in college, and I was a young mom, and so Raven and Rob was actually there with me. And so they grew so much and learned so much. And then my daughter, for Raven to decide to go to that same college, we wanted to create a part of the foundation to be able to give a scholarship to a student. And so then I decided that, well, I wanted that student to be in the mental, physical, or spiritual fields, right? There's a lot of scholarships for a lot of different things, but I wanted this specifically because my daughter wanted to go into the mental health field with me. I've been in this field for quite some time, and I'm with you. I don't really say how long, but it's been some time. And I love this work, and she loved this work, and I want to be able to give back to another student that attended a college that she and I attended, to be able to give back. Raven also did not get a chance to graduate. She passed away just weeks before she was about to graduate. And so I did not get a chance to see her walk across the stage, any of that kind of stuff. She's like, I never got to see her do that. In high school, she graduated early. Okay. So that she was that kid. Mom, we'll wait. I'm like, girl, like I didn't work all this. Like this is our diploma. Like I want to see you get it. Mom, we'll do it when I graduate college. So she did not go to high school. The graduation, she was already at Georgia State. She's like, I'm not about to go back to high school to walk across the stage, and I'm already in college. Okay, Raven. And so we were ready for this, right? And so the fact that she was not able to do that, for me to see her like that was just devastating, And so those type of things that kind of added up and contributed to the pain, I just knew I had to do something with it. And so with the foundation that I created, the goal is to be able to do a couple of things. One, to continue her work, right? She was, like I said, she was feeding homeless, back to school drives. We've already participated in a back to school drive this year. And we connect a lot and collaborate a lot with her AMPS Foundation, because I want the girls to keep that going. That was her baby. But I also created the foundation because I didn't want to come in and take over their business. And so I wanted to do something in conjunction and collaboration with them. And so we've already done a back to school drive. We worked on a canned goods drive. And also we'll be trying to do a tour drive for December, because those are some of the things that she's doing. So the foundation is to continue her work in the community, to do some more grief work in the community, because it's so needed. Going through this process, I realize it's not as many resources as you would like to think, depending on where you live. Like even me going to group, I have to drive almost an hour to go, to a grief group. And so wanting to bring some more awareness and resources to the community is so important. And so the foundation is designed to do to do many of those things. We have already given away our first scholarship to a Georgia State student already this year. And I will be doing it. I've decided to do it every year on her actual birthday. And so to give me something to look forward to that's not just centered around the grief and the sadness, but doing something else with that love and with that pain.
And I was actually going to ask you that, Pamela, if that's one of the things as a therapist and as someone who has gone through this, do you recommend that this is something that someone does to find the outlet whenever they have grief? Is that something that you would recommend?
Um, I would recommend you doing whatever you have to do to survive, like whatever that looks like. I think that goes back to that grief language, right? What may work for someone, it may be too much for somebody else. Somebody else could look at my story like, how in the world is she already doing all of this stuff? I know that I have.
Me, me, because I'm like, wait, what? When I looked at the date that Raven passed, I said, oh my gosh, like this
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
this year.
But I knew that I have other children I have to live for. I have a brand new husband that I have to live for. I have family and friends that I need to live for. And I knew I had to do something with it quick. That's just me, right? But I do encourage people to do whatever it is that you need to do to survive this grief, because it is a it is it's challenging. It is not easy. I think I've always been told you make things look easy. There is absolutely nothing easy about this process. I mean, it's every day, because I wish it wasn't a thing. Like, who wants to create a foundation in honor of their child that's dead or was killed? Nobody wants to do this. You know what I mean? But I have to find a way to survive this. I have to find a way to not lose it or not be present for my kids, because they deserve their mom to be present for them, you know. So that's how I fight. And so whatever you need to do to fight through your grief, I think that you should do it. Me sharing so much, I've always been transparent, and so when I decided to share on social media, I really decided to do it because, you know, it's just a quick way to kind of give people updates. I don't have to tell, 50 people how I'm doing. Here you go. This is how I'm doing. Hey, look at this reel. This is exactly how I feel. You know, I had no idea I would wake up and then they would just like go viral. Like I was just posting it because it honestly made me feel better. Right. Like once I would release it, it was like a way of journaling. Right. So I kind of looked at it from that perspective. And so it's become a part of how I release my feelings. And so I encourage anybody to try things, right? Try things. I never wrote long posts on social media. Like, that just wasn't my thing. Here I am writing long posts on social media, because it's helping me. And if that helps, then do it, um, because every day that you wake up is another day that you have to figure this out. And it is a fight every day. It's a fight every day. And so whatever you can do to do that, then do it. If sharing helps, then share.
So, what I wanted to also ask is, before we go into how everyone can support you and find you and all of that, is there something that you have figured out along the way that you would like to share with other mothers that unfortunately deal with what you're dealing with or will go through? Because like you said, it's unfortunate, it's
Yes.
life, you just never know. Every day you have to just live to the fullest. So is there something that you would like to share that maybe you learned, or something in that new bag of grief that you sort of found now? Anything you want to share?
I would say find your tribe. Unfortunately, going through this, you're like thrust into a group, like almost like a sorority or fraternity type thing that nobody wants to be in, but you are in it. And lean into it. Talk to people, share your feelings, share your raw feelings. I think that in society we get so caught up in just sharing like the highlights, right? The good stuff. But we all are going through some not so good stuff. We are all going through some pain and trauma and tragedies, and um, share with somebody. You don't have to share it with millions of people like I've done. But if that works, do that too. But I do feel like me sharing and talking getting it out. You know what I mean? I think that everything about grief wants to make you push it in. It wants to make you push it in and push it down. But what I've learned through life and going through this process, that it's only so far you can push it. And it's not gonna have anywhere else to go. And it's gonna come out whether you want it to or not. And it's gonna come out in ways that you may not have wanted it to come out, i.e., cursing somebody out in the store, or just doing reckless things. And so to minimize that, I choose to talk about it regularly. I'm open and honest about the process. I'm transparent about the journey, the good parts of it and the bad parts of it. And so I would definitely encourage mothers and parents, if you're going through this unfortunate and tragic situation, find you a tribe and lean into it.
Mm, that's good advice. That's good advice. Okay, so how can people find you, support the foundation, support you, support Raven, all of that great stuff?
Absolutely. Well, I am on Instagram. My name is Pamela_Breyon, and that's Breyon. So if you are interested in I have coined it such the Raven Hole. So it is literally like, I feel like a ongoing journey of surviving grief and grief out loud, and my 1 millisecond at a time way of handling this journey. So if you want to see the journey, see the ups and downs and ins and out of it, and how I am dealing with it, then definitely follow me on Instagram at Pamela_Breyon. Um, we have the Ray T Foundation, so that's on Instagram as well, at the Ray T Foundation. That's also the website, theraytfoundation.com. You can make a donation straight through there. It is a nonprofit, and so any donations goes towards a great cause. And so there's no donation too small. You don't have to feel like, oh, I'm giving $2. It is going to go to a good cause, and so please, give whatever you can if you would like to do that. Um, Also on those same names are also on Facebook as well. So yeah, those are ways to support me. If you see me, give me a hug. Don't I'm learning that people are seeing me places and they're like wondering, like, is that Raven's mom? And I'm okay with being Raven's mom. But they'll like maybe DM me later, like, I think I saw you. If you see me, come say hey, give me a hug. I probably need it. Fun fact, I was not a hugger before this. Like, that was physical touch was like far down on my language. And so my grief language, physical touch is higher on it. So if you see me, come and say hello, give me a hug. I probably need it. um, if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, or any ways that you can, participate in any things that we're doing, send donations, send food, send toys. Definitely go on to follow those Instagram pages, because you're going to get all the updates on things that we are doing. Um, Also follow at AMPS Wellness, AMPS Wellness. That is the foundation that my daughter started with her. Was a nonprofit that my daughter started. Please follow them. They're still doing some amazing things in the community, and they're trying to navigate through this grief as well.
Okay, I love that. Oh my gosh. Pamela, I'm just in awe and amazed at your strength. Just I love you. I'm giving you a hug. I'm giving you a grief language hug.
Thank you. And you know what I have also decided is that I'm leaning into that strength. A lot of times we want to push away from, like, I don't want to be strong, but I'm leaning into that as well. And I encourage parents, lean into that strength. Yes, it's hard. Yes, nobody wants to go through that. But if you're waking up every day and you get that one leg out the bed and that second leg out the bed, that is some strength. And so lean into that as well.
Mm, good advice. Good advice. Good advice. Okay, and you guys, I will have all of Pamela's the clickable links, all of her information in the podcast notes, so be sure to click on that as well. So, thank you so much, Pamela, for sharing Raven's story, your story. I definitely appreciate it, and I'm definitely inspired for sure. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.